All right, Murray, got a question for you.
Hit me, Rosie.
How important is the setting for creative work? Like the space and the time and the tools and stuff like that. Um, and I'm going to ask you all around this question, like what's too far, what's bare minimum, but like to you, how do you think about that?
I think habits and space are something that most people associate with like creativity with emotion, and I think space and the habit of creation really sort of flows into that. It's quite a. Some people walk into a room and notice who's in the room, or the things, and other people walk in and go, "Oh, this feels a bit off. This feels a bit weird," or "This feels really welcoming. This feels great." And I think a big part of the creative experience for me is actually harnessing that same energy. And so if you're in the practice of creating every day, then you want to be able to have the tools around, like whether that's a pad or a pen, or your mouse or an iPad, whatever it is. But that's a very personal thing, like you create in very different spaces to to the spaces that I do. Um, I've tried working in co-working spaces. I've tried, I created one of my biggest projects from cafes, and just moving from cafes, and because I felt like I needed to design. If I was designing an event, a large event, I really wanted to be able to see random people all the time, so I could remember that I was designing it not for me, but for lots of other people. But that's a very, very personal thing, I think. Like every I've heard Mariah Carey can't sleep, so she listens, like has really bad. Um, so she just listens to really loud music all the time, and that puts her to sleep. Like, I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with the way she sings. But.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that it's super personal. But I think often it's either we underemphasize its importance or we overemphasize its importance, right? So, like, sometimes I think people are working uphill because they haven't thought about how or where they're working or with what tools.
Mm,
And vice versa, I think some people will use the tools and the space and the context as a hiding place or as a noble obstacle, as we like to call them. Um, did anything jump out at you about that?
I mean, noble obstacles are gold, right? Like, I think maybe we should do a whole just episode on that. But in terms of how much time and energy we can spend setting up our space in order to do nothing, like that's the classic noble obstacle, like setting up your office to be a productive creative space is a really noble goal. But is it opening up more opportunities for you to work, or is it becoming an obstacle to your work? I, I can't think of a better illustration of the idea of noble obstacles than that, other than maybe, designing a really pretty logo when you should maybe think about your business first. But I mean, I would love to have a nicer office. I think about it all the time. I think about, gee, I'd really love more space, or I'd love that. And you scroll through Instagram or whatever, and people just have these beautiful offices. And then you sort of go, well, but how much time did it take you not only to design that, but then to document it in such a pretty way and share about it? Like, I hope you are putting that much effort into your work. If so, awesome. But I don't have time to worry about my office that much because I'm really focused on doing great work.
Yeah, that's it. Like there are other people I find on the other side of the spectrum. So I have a mate. He's a digital nomad of type, and I always thought it was weird that every time we talked on Zoom, he was like sitting on the couch. Then I realized that's his office. he didn't work from the dining table or anything like that. And I just thought, man, I wonder if you'd find flow if you just like thoughtfully picked some stuff. Do you remember your first setup out of interest, the first one you liked?
It looked so much like this.
Really?
It's, you know, I've never made the leap from, you know, IKEA desk, like classic, just cheapo, good stuff that you can move in and out of a house or, you know, whatever, to having the guts or the, I don't know, the budget really to leap up to, you know, the really fancy desk stuff. But I mean, I've basically had the same sort of setup for a long time. I guess at the other end of this is the example. I mean, the number of people that I see every day. So, you know, I live here on the Gold Coast in, you know, eastern part of Australia, and the number of people who clearly travel a long way to come here to the Gold Coast to set up for the day and work from a bench or, you know, whatever it is, so that they can have a really nice place to take photographs of themselves or whatever. Like, they're not getting very much work done. It's a lovely idea to work from a beach, and if you're a writer, I think possibly that might make a big difference. I don't know. I can't. But um, the idea of certainly doing design work or a lot of, you know, conceptual stuff or things, building things that are going to interact with people, I really struggle being near the beach. Like, all I see are, you know, people on holiday. That's not necessarily the people that I'm designing for. But I definitely think that if you're looking to get into flow, then the best thing you can do is understand your own DNA and look for, you know, what triggers you for, you know, positive and negative things. You know, being close to the fridge is not always, you know, a good trigger for me. But, you know, if there's one thing you can do, is have just a place that is not a computer that you can sketch in or read in or whatever, even if it's in the same room. But like, if you can have, you know, I've got my whiteboard, and then behind that is sort of where I do my reading or whatever, because when I'm here at the computer, I'm here to work, I'm here to build stuff. And it has become a bit of a trigger for me to sit here and I think, okay, like, I'm in work mode. It's not as fun to just sit here and scroll through stuff as it used to be.
Yeah, there are I don't remember what this is called, but there's two modes of thinking, like diffuse thinking and focused thinking. And you know, you live a lot in diffuse mode, which is connecting the dots, sort of like zooming out and seeing the patterns and things like that. And then there's focus work, and you're right, it's so good to have two different places, contexts to key you to that. And I want to underscore something else you said about, you got to know your own DNA. You got to figure out what works for you. I think a lot of us who started out in 9 to 5 are just so used to dealing with whatever we get that we don't even consider, how would I work better? You know, like, would a different chair help, or, you know, a different app, or trying to work on paper instead of on the, you know, on the computer all the time. These are things that it's kind of like, and maybe not the chair, but everything else is kind of pretty cheap to experiment with. And even with a chair, you know, you can borrow off people, you can try different chairs. The people who love chairs are really fine with like letting other people try their chairs. But I just think that's something that's super, super underrated, because we don't know what works for us until we try different things. And if we've been doing the same thing
I
for
think,
ages, it's invisible.
and we massively underestimate how much difference it might make.
Exactly.
Whereas marketers like me, or anyone selling you, you know, the lifestyle design dream on Instagram, massively overestimates it. Like, there are some really amazing, you know, productivity systems out there, and you've tried them all, but the best one I could possibly, like, man, these little cards, it's $2.50 for a packet. It's so great. It's so great. And like, there's so many different people or places that are trying to sell you $1,000 or a $500, $200 version of little cards, or like this chair. It's not perfect, but like I got it for $10 on Gumtree because someone didn't have room for it anymore. You know, like it's a good chair. I don't need anything super fancy. I wish I had slightly more room. I think, just like, they're the things that you can't buy more of. You can't buy more room, you can't buy more time, whatever. So if you can find a way to have narrower desks, if you're not using up all the space or whatever, great. But you know, I think as long as you got good Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, I also think like even even if you were like gave yourself an unlimited budget for the office, I still think it's too much decision fatigue to get the best of everything. I think you're the same in this way. Like you sort of go expensive in one or two categories, the things that really matter. For you, that's the tech. The things that really matter, and then the rest is just whatever supports that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I mean, for those of us that live and work, get paid for our brains, it's such a privilege in so many ways to be able to do that. But if you have the medium to get that, I mean, really, what else do you need? I don't. It'd be so nice to have a really great place to work, but I think if you've got a good pair of headphones, you should be able to tune out 90% of what's going around you, and like hopefully dial into whatever work you're doing.
yeah, totally agree. So recapping, actually, I don't know where we've been. It's hyper personalized. Figure out what works for you. Experiment a little bit. Consider going all in on one category. Um, any final thoughts? Anything to add?
Um, get a fan because mine broke and I'm hot.
Good one, Mans. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll see you next week.